Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me for a moment, because what I'm about to tell you has the power to shift the trajectory of your entire life. There are moments when life feels like a puzzle with missing pieces, when the things you prayed for don't happen the way you expected, and when the door you believed God would open stays shut. And it is right there in the tension between your expectation and your experience that your faith is tested. But hear me clearly. When life doesn't make sense, that's the perfect moment to trust God the most. Because if you could understand everything, you wouldn't need faith. And if you could control everything, you wouldn't need God. There will be seasons when you pray and heaven feels silent. When you give your best and the results don't match your effort. When people betray you, when storms hit you from every direction, and when God allows things that make you say, Lord, why this? Why now? Why me? But here's the hook. Sometimes God is not punishing you. He's positioning you. Sometimes the delay is not denial. It's divine development. God is not confused. God is not panicked. God is not trying to figure out what to do next. He's working behind the scenes in ways your eyes cannot see, your mind cannot understand, and your heart cannot fully grasp. When life stops making sense, that's when God starts making miracles. See, trusting God is easy when everything is flowing, when bills are paid, when relationships are peaceful, when doors magically open. But trust is proven in confusion, in uncertainty, and in those late night moments when your pillow is soaked with tears. Faith is not the evidence of things you see. Faith is the evidence of the God you know. And when you don't understand his plan, trust his character. Trust his timing. Trust his heart. When life pushes you into moments that don't make sense, moments where everything feels upside down and nothing lines up with what you prayed for, that's not the evidence that God is absent. It's the evidence that God is strategic. And here's the hook you've got to hold onto. The seasons that confuse you the most are often the seasons where God is doing his deepest work. The problem is we want clarity before obedience, but God often gives direction before explanation. He doesn't lay out the blueprint. He invites you to walk by faith while he builds the blueprint around your steps. Think about this. The moves that feel like missteps to you may actually be masterstrokes from God. You see the moment, he sees the map. You feel the pressure, he sees the purpose. You're worried about what's happening right now, but he's arranging what's going to happen next. And sometimes the moves he makes look backward before they push you forward. Sometimes he strips things away not because you're losing, but because you're lightening the load for the level he's taking you to. That's why you can't panic just because the path doesn't make sense today. Confusion is not cancellation, it's construction. Here's another hook. If God explained everything before he did it, you would trust the explanation more than you trust him. So he doesn't give you details, he gives you direction. He doesn't give you the full picture, he gives you enough light for the next step. And the reason it doesn't make sense to you is because God is working in dimensions your mind cannot comprehend yet. You're thinking days, he's planning decades. You're thinking survival, he's planning significance. You're asking for relief. He's developing resilience. What looks like random disruption is often divine orchestration. You may think something fell apart, but what if it actually fell into place? You may think a relationship ended, but what if God removed someone who couldn't go where you're going? You may think you missed an opportunity, but what if God blocked it because it wasn't aligned with the version of you he's shaping? God doesn't just move pieces, he moves purpose. And when he makes a move that confuses you, it's usually because he's positioning you for something bigger than your current perspective can handle. The discomfort you feel is not a sign of divine disorganization. It's a sign of divine transition. Pressure creates movement. Movement creates growth. And growth creates access to the future God designed for you. But you will never see the strategy if you quit in the confusion. You will never understand the purpose if you panic in the process. You will never experience the breakthrough if you walk away during the buildup. The blessing is almost always hidden behind the parts of life that make the least sense. And here's the part most people miss. God's strategy doesn't require your understanding, only your trust. Trust doesn't mean you feel good. Trust means you stay steady. Trust means you keep walking even when the road bends in ways you didn't expect. Trust means you believe God is working even when nothing around you looks like progress. Trust means you stop rehearsing the problem and start reinforcing your faith. Trust is acting like God is telling the truth even before you see the proof. So when life stops making sense, don't crumble, lean in. Don't pull back, press forward. Don't question whether God is moving. Ask him what he's preparing. Because the move that confuses you today may be the very move that elevates you tomorrow. God's strategy is flawless, even when it feels foggy. And when the moment finally arrives where everything he was doing in the dark becomes clear in the light, you'll realize the whole time he wasn't breaking you. He was building you. Every delay, every detour, and every disappointment in your life carries a weight far greater than the moment itself. These aren't random interruptions. They are intentional interventions. And here's the hook you need to absorb deep into your spirit, what you call a setback. God often calls skill building. You see only the inconvenience, but God sees the increase. You feel the frustration, but God feels the formation. He is shaping you in seasons that feel stagnant, stretching you in seasons that feel silent, and strengthening you through experiences you would have never chosen on your own. The truth is, we live in a world where people want overnight elevation without daily preparation. But God never gives a promise without giving a process. And the process is almost always wrapped in discomfort. When God delays something, it's not because he's withholding. It's because he's developing. He's making sure the blessing you receive will not become a burden you can't handle. Sometimes he slows you down not because the opportunity isn't ready for you, but because you aren't ready for the opportunity. And here's the hook that stings but saves God's not yet, is often his greatest mercy. If he gave you what you were praying for too soon, you might mishandle it, mismanage it, or misunderstand the responsibility attached to it. Detours are another tool God uses to shape your destiny. The journey you planned is rarely the journey God allows. The direct path may be the fastest, but the detour is often the path that teaches you the most. It's where you discover endurance, patience, discernment, and wisdom. You don't grow on the mountaintop. You grow on the road that twists, turns, and tests you. And sometimes the road God takes you on seems to lead away from the thing you desire most. But the detour is not a delay in direction. It is an upgrade in preparation. God reroutes you because the straight path cannot carry the weight of the lessons you need to learn. And then there are disappointments, those painful moments when something you deeply wanted simply doesn't happen. You prayed for it, worked for it, believed for it, and still watched it slip away. But here's another hook. Disappointment is often God's way of closing a door that would have become a disaster had it stayed open. You're grieving the loss, but God is celebrating the rescue. You're frustrated about what you didn't receive, but God is relieved about what you didn't have to survive. Every disappointment carries direction. It pushes you towards something better, something safer, something more aligned with your divine purpose. When you look back over your life, you'll realize you learned more from delays than from breakthroughs, more from detours than from straight roads, more from disappointments than from easy victories. The things that tried to crush you actually carved you. The seasons that broke you actually built you. The moments that confused you actually clarified you. God was strengthening your character, sharpening your vision, expanding your capacity, and forging your resilience. You may not like the delay, but you'll need the strength it creates. You may not understand the detour, but you'll rely on the wisdom it produces. You may not enjoy the disappointment, but you'll value the protection it provides. Nothing God allows is wasted. He multiplies everything, even the moments that feel meaningless. So when life doesn't go according to your plans, don't panic. Just pause and ask, God, what are you developing in me right now? Because the season you're praying to escape may be the very season God is using to equip you. The pressure is not punishment, it is preparation. The slower pace is not stagnation, it is stabilization. And the thing that feels like a setback may turn out to be the setup that launches you into the greatest season of your life. God is not delaying your destiny, He's designing it. He's not denying your progress, He's deepening it. And when the moment comes for everything He prepared you for to finally unfold, you'll realize the delays were deposits, the detours were directions, and the disappointments were deliverance. Faith becomes real not when everything is clear, but when everything feels chaotic. Anyone can lift their hands and praise when life is smooth, when the numbers align, when your prayers are answered exactly as you imagined. But the true measure of faith is revealed in the moments when clarity is absent, when the path is dark, when your emotions are loud, and when nothing seems to match what God promised you. And here's a hook you need to hold tight. Faith is not proven by what you understand. It's proven by what you trust when you don't understand anything at all. That's where spiritual maturity is formed. That's where purpose is strengthened. That's where God separates believers from spectators. There will be seasons where God takes you through places you didn't choose, experiences you didn't expect, and challenges you didn't see coming. Life will hand you questions you never studied for. You'll stand in front of situations that demand faith you didn't know you had. And in those moments, the human instinct is to pull back, to overthink, to analyze every angle until you feel secure again. But faith is not analysis. Faith is surrender. Faith is the courage to move when you're not sure. Faith is the decision to trust God when your feelings want to panic. And here's another hook: if you wait for certainty before you obey, you will never walk into your destiny. God often positions your breakthrough on the other side of the unknown. He doesn't reveal the entire journey, because if He did, you would either run ahead of Him or run away from the assignment entirely. So He gives you glimpses, nudges, and whispers. He doesn't hand you a map. He hands you a command. And the question becomes, will you trust His voice more than your need for clarity? Will you move without all the details? Will you obey without understanding the timing? Real faith doesn't require the situation to make sense. It requires your heart to stay steady. It requires you to hold on to hope when evidence is absent. It requires you to believe that God is working even when you can't see any visible progress. Sometimes God hides progress on purpose because If he showed you everything he was doing, you would rely on the progress instead of relying on him. So he lets you walk through seasons where the results are invisible, so your trust can become unshakable. Think about this. The miracles God performs most often begin with uncertainty on your part. Abraham didn't know where he was going, but he walked. Moses didn't know how the sea would part, but he lifted the staff. David didn't know how God would deliver him, but he stepped forward anyway. Faith always feels foolish before it feels victorious. And here's a hook that separates champions from quitters. Faith is acting like God is telling the truth, even when your circumstances are calling him a liar. When confusion shows up, it's not the enemy of your faith. It's the environment where faith grows. Clarity comforts the mind, but confusion strengthens the spirit. It forces you to stop depending on what you see and begin depending on who you know. It teaches you to lean less on your understanding and more on God's sovereignty. And when you finally step into the blessing he's preparing, you'll realize it wasn't your certainty that got you there. It was your obedience. It was your trust. It was the courage to take a step even though the path was unclear. So when life throws you into a season where nothing adds up, don't collapse under the weight of confusion. Stand tall. Keep walking. Keep believing. Because confusion is not a sign that God abandoned you. It's a sign that God is stretching you into someone who can carry the next level. Faith grows strongest when the lights go out, the answers stop coming, and all you have left is the quiet conviction that God is still God. Even here, even now, even in what you don't understand, closed doors can feel like some of the most painful moments in life. You prepare, you pray, you believe, and just when you think you're stepping into the opportunity you've been waiting for, the door slams shut. It's easy to interpret that as rejection, as failure, as evidence that God is withholding something from you. But here's a hook that shifts the entire perspective. A closed door is not God rejecting you. It's God redirecting you away from something that wasn't aligned with your destiny. We cry over doors that God is celebrating for closing because he sees danger where we see desire, and he sees protection where we see disappointment. Sometimes the door you wanted so badly would have led you into a season that would drain you, distract you, or derail you. You don't see the long-term consequences. You see the short-term comfort. God isn't just the God of the open door. He's the God of the blocked path, the God of the locked opportunity, the God of the divine no. And here's the hook most people never understand. God's no is often louder than his yes, because his no is what keeps you alive, aligned, and assigned to the right purpose. If he let every door stay open just because you wanted it, your life would be full of rooms that were never meant to hold you. There are relationships you beg God to keep that would have broken you. There are jobs you wanted that would have drained you. There are opportunities you chased that would have consumed you. There are environments you prayed to enter that would have suffocated your calling. You think you lost something, but what if you actually escaped something? One day you will look back and thank God for every door he shut, because you'll realize those closed doors saved you from battles you never saw coming. Closed doors are not random. They are strategic. God doesn't block access to punish you. He does it to position you. A closed door might be the divine push that forces you into the path you were always meant to walk. If every door opened easily, you would settle for convenience instead of calling. You would choose comfort over growth. You would stay in places where your purpose cannot expand. So God closes the door to move you forward, not backward. He disrupts your plans to protect his purpose for your life. And here's another hook you need to hold on to. A closed door is not the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your redirection. God will shut one door and then lead you to a better one, a wiser one, a safer one, a door that aligns with the version of you he is shaping. But you'll never discover that better door if you stay in front of the closed one crying over what didn't happen. Sometimes the only thing standing between you and your next season is your refusal to let go of a door God has already locked. Closed doors remove options that would have distracted you. They eliminate choices that would have weakened you. They simplify your path by removing paths that were never meant for you. You're not being denied. You're being guided. And the funny thing about closed doors is that we don't understand their purpose until we're far enough to see the whole picture. Right now, all you see is frustration. Later, you'll see protection. Right now, you feel rejection. Later, you'll see direction. Right now, you're confused. Later, you'll be grateful. Even the disappointments that come with closed doors carry divine intention. God knows when a door will lead to heartbreak. He knows when an opportunity will crush your spirit. He knows when a situation will stretch you beyond the boundaries he designed for your health, your purpose, and your destiny. So he closes the door, not because he wants to limit you, but because he wants to launch you. His denial is your deliverance. So when you stand in front of a door that won't open no matter how hard you pray, push, or pursue, don't assume something is wrong with you. Don't assume you failed. Don't assume God is ignoring you. Instead, ask a better question. God, what are you protecting me from? What are you preparing me for? What path are you redirecting me toward? Because the door that shuts in your face might be the very door that saves your life. And if you can trust God when he closes a door, you position yourself to walk boldly through the one he opens next, stronger, wiser, and aligned with his perfect plan. Before God releases the blessing you've been praying for, he works on something far more important. He works on you. Most people want the promise without the preparation, the reward without the refinement, the elevation without the development. But here's a hook you've got to lock into your spirit. God won't give you what you're asking for until you become the person who can sustain it. God isn't just preparing the provision, he's preparing the person. And that person is you, the version of you who prayed for. It is not always the version of you who can carry it. Sometimes God keeps a blessing out of reach, not because it's too big for you, but because you're too small for it right now. Not small in value, small in capacity. God will never send a blessing where there is no structure to support it. He will grow your patience before he grows your platform. He will strengthen your character before he increases your influence. He will develop your discipline before he expands your destiny. And here's a hook that stings but saves. God won't let your gift take you to a place where your maturity can't keep you. That's not punishment. That's protection. We often think the delay is about the blessing not being ready. But most of the time, the delay is about us not being ready. You may want the opportunity, but are you emotionally stable enough to handle the pressure attached to it? You may want the relationship, but have you healed enough to love without repeating past patterns? You may want the promotion, but do you have the leadership, consistency, and integrity required to sustain it? God develops you privately so you don't collapse publicly. He strengthens you in silence so you don't break under blessing. Think about how God operates. Before he put David on the throne, he put him in the field. Before he trusted Joseph with a nation, He trained him in a prison. Before Moses led millions, he learned humility in the wilderness. God makes greatness look sudden, but it is always built in seasons of preparation. You see the spotlight, God sees the sweat. You celebrate the crown, God develops the character. And here's a hook worth remembering: the blessing you're praying for is demanding a bigger, wiser, stronger version of you. When life feels uncomfortable, when God stretches you, when he challenges your habits, your thinking, your patience, your attitude, it's not because he's punishing you, it's because he's shaping you. Growth is never pretty. Transformation is never easy. Development always feels like pressure, but pressure is not your enemy. It is your evidence. It proves that God is preparing you for something weightier than anything you've ever carried. The blessing requires strength, and God is building that strength in the very areas where you've been feeling the most resistance. Even your struggles are part of the preparation. The battles that wore you out are creating spiritual muscle. The disappointments that broke you are giving you emotional depth. The responsibilities that overwhelm you are expanding your capacity. You're becoming the version of you that can manage what's coming. You're becoming the version of you that won't sabotage the blessing with old habits. You're becoming the version of you that won't shrink, quit, or crumble the moment the pressure increases. And here's another hook that reveals God's intentionality. God won't just give you a blessing. He will make sure you can multiply it. Anyone can receive a blessing. Only prepared people can steward it. God is not building you for survival. He's building you for stewardship, for impact, for legacy. That is why he takes his time. That is why he cuts off certain people, shifts your environment, confronts your weaknesses, stretches your faith. He is not delaying you. He is developing you into someone who can carry influence without losing identity, handle success without losing humility, and walk in purpose without losing focus. So when you feel like God is taking too long, remind yourself that he's not just working on the blessing, he's working on you. When you feel stretched, he's expanding your capacity. When you feel tested, he's strengthening your foundation. When you feel uncomfortable, he's maturing your character. One day when the blessing finally arrives, you will look at yourself and realize that God didn't just prepare the blessing for you, he prepared you for the blessing. And that preparation was the real miracle all along. So I leave you with this: don't let confusion make you forget who your God is. Don't let the storm distract you from the one who controls the wind. Don't let the battle make you doubt the one who already wrote your victory. When life doesn't make sense, trust God, because he's not just preparing a blessing for you, he's preparing you for the blessing. And when he finally reveals what he's been doing behind the scenes, you're going to look back and say, now I understand. Now I see why I had to wait. Now I know why that door had to close. Now I realize God was working all along. A walk in faith, walk in confidence, and trust God even when nothing makes sense, because that is exactly when he does his greatest work.